Hey guys, welcome to Mom Again, the show where my best friend and I talk about our attempt to navigate life as moms, neurodivergent disasters, and generally exhausted human beings just trying to keep our shit together.
So, why this podcast? Well, we realized that there are so many of us out here moms, caregivers, disabled folk, neurodivergent people who are just out here trying to make it, and no one really gives us a handbook for how to survive when society wasn't exactly built with us in mind. So, we figured, why not talk about it? Why not share our stories, our struggles, our wins, our absolute disasters? Why not make it a fucking party?
This is a space where we can be real, we can be messy, and most importantly, know that we're not alone in this. So grab a drink, find a comfy spot, and get ready to laugh, cry, and maybe even learn something weirdly fascinating along the way.
All right, let's fucking do this.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are discussing surrogacy, which is somehow one of the most selfless, emotionally complex, and medically fascinating things humans can do. This is your host, Jess, and I myself have been a surrogate. And per usual, Z did the historical research, and together we're going to talk about how humanity has been figuring out creative ways to make babies since the dawn of time.
Yay.
All
Yeah,
right, so Z, you want to take it away?
sure. I think it's, really obvious to state that surrogacy probably didn't begin with IVF clinics and like soft lighting and inspirational Pinterest quotes. It began thousands of years ago with men saying, my wife can't get pregnant. Have we considered someone else? Maybe another woman? in, in ancient Mesopotamia, around 1800 BCE, the Code of Hammurabi said that if a wife couldn't conceive, her husband could simply just like use another woman to do it for her. A lot of the times these would be like slaves, um, poor women, women who obviously had zero rights and consent.
So you just grab somebody off the street and be like, "You're making a baby for me?"
Basically, a lot of the times it was like their slaves, the enslaved women, which isn't better, but
No.
um, this is something she's risky, especially in this time. She's risking death and the baby isn't legally hers. So, right out the gate, surrogacy wasn't necessarily this beautiful miracle and more of like reproductive outsourcing. Um, and this is a theme in the history of surrogacy. It gets better. I know like there's like biblical recollection of it, but I'm not really interested in getting into that.
Yeah.
In the Middle Ages through 1900s, same story, less documentation. So for centuries, rich women who couldn't conceive relied on poor women, servants, enslaved women to carry their children. At this time, there were no contracts, no medical care, no therapy, vibes and mortality rates. So pregnancy was considered like work, woman's work, which is super fascinating because I'm sure they didn't get hazard pay. Um,
No.
and it's a dangerous unpaid internship. 1970s kind of enters the chat, right? So we fast forward to the 1970s, and that's when science said, what if we make this complicated?
Of course.
Um, so this is the beginning of what we know now as artificial insemination. And suddenly we have this idea of modern surrogacy. So agencies pop up saying things like women helping women and miracles happen here. Meanwhile, women who were kind of coerced into this are asking, like, wait, what the fuck happens if I die? Like, is anybody gonna pay my hospital bills? What's gonna happen to my family if I die? So at this point, women are like, okay, I get it, but where are my rights as a surrogate? Which is super good
That's
question.
fair.
hmm
That's
Yeah,
fair.
and while they're asking this, science is saying, great question. Next.
Right.
um, But this is kind of leading into the 1986 case that we have, the Baby M case. Um,
Mm.
it changed surrogacy forever. So a working class woman, Mary Beth Whitehead, agrees to be a surrogate for a wealthy couple using her own egg. She gives birth, and then her body does what bodies chemically do after you have a baby. Babies release pheromones from their scalp and you create a bonding process with them. So she bonded with the baby, and the case essentially wrecked the legal system in this way. She wanted to keep the baby. And the courts were like, okay, but have you considered capitalism? Or alternatively, you could
Right.
get judges realize that in this moment, you can't treat pregnancy like a fucking microwave rental, right? So you can't just say return item after 9 months in original condition, because pregnancy does change a lot. Like changes your brain, your hormones, your body. And this was warned, previously, but whenever you have women specifically looking at science and looking at the court systems and saying like, hey, there should be more protection in this work that only women do, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for people to take that seriously. But when we start having,
Absolutely.
yeah, but whenever it starts affecting like the rich people aspect of it, so now you have this poor woman who's like, I had this baby, I'm gonna keep it. And this baby, belongs to this rich couple. Now we're affecting a different demographic taken seriously. So the solution that they had after this was, okay, new plan. What if she's not the biological mom? What if we change to what we now know as gestational surrogacy? Um, Not necessarily because it's healthier for women, but just because it was legally cleaner. So now the surrogate was renamed a gestational carrier, which is corporate speak for like, please do not think about, like what's really going on here. And that's whenever
Right.
the language started changing. So we went from calling them mothers to calling them carriers. And then instead of calling it pregnancy, we would call it service. And then this one kind of fucks with me a little bit, but it's real. We went from labor to transaction.
Yeah.
And I get it because it's what it is. I get it. But it's just like, oh gosh. Um, Nothing says progress like rebranding a human being into a shipping container.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
global surrogacy starts happening. Capitalism gets international. By the 2000s, rich countries were saying the surrogacy law is annoying. And poor countries said, we're broke. And they got together and decided that they were going to have international surrogacy. So women in countries like India and Ukraine were housing clinics and monitored constantly. They were restricted in movement. And um, they were required to follow pretty strict rules. So at this point, like pregnancy with a parole officer.
Well, that's
Um,
fun.
Yeah. And people still have the audacity to call that like a beautiful miracle, which I know we're making families, but at this point it's kind of like what cost? And then feminism enters the chat and immediately argues, but they're split, right? Women should have control of their bodies in labor. And then there were others that say consent under financial desperation is not real consent. And so
That's true.
at the end of the day, feminism agreed on one thing. If something goes wrong during pregnancy, the woman carrying the baby is the one who needs to be the most protected in this situation. The intended parent should get grief relief, so the surrogate gets a funeral. Um, and we're also taking into accountability of financial things outside of just getting pregnant. Like, I know you and I were even talking to at one point of like doctor's appointments and stuff like that, where childcare should be
Yeah.
paid for. And then also like maternity clothes, like you get bigger. And so you're going to need allowance. So this is whenever that starts coming in, is women were saying, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right and we need to protect each other. Let's start talking about how to make this more realistic. And then today, surrogacy is legal in some states. It is illegal in others. Um, and I feel like a lot of people find it confusing in all states. There's like so much different rhetoric from different areas. I know you and I have even different views on it. I haven't personally been a surrogate, but I was, in the system myself as a kid. And so it's easy for my brain to say, that typical of just like, why do surrogacy when you can just adopt a baby? But
Right.
that's not everybody's, it's not my right to, decide what other people deserve for their family and what they need and what makes them feel good.
That's true. And we do differ in that a little bit. Obviously, I definitely think that there should be more people who are willing to go the adoption route. Um, but in my mind, I don't get to control the why or, how they decide, what choice is best for them. So that was kind of where I landed was, it's not my business. But still wanting to support that adoption and even fostering and adopting, like giving kids a safe space, I still support that 1,000,000%. So yeah, we have some differing views in some of it and some very similar views.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that if it's the same as abortion, right? Like, as far as legality, it's gonna always be here. Surrogacy is gonna outsource it in however ways. So if we're gonna have it, then we need to make sure that we're taking care of, in my opinion, the most important aspect of it, which is the pregnant person themselves.
Right.
Um, and so that's where I'm at on that. It's just I wanna make sure that that pregnant person is taken care of, and I know there's, like, a lot of, I mean, even just, like, your experience with it, which I know, like, we'll get into, of just watching you go through it. It was beautiful, it was great, I love that you got to do that. I was so anxious the whole time of, like, I just wanted you to be okay. And the
Yeah,
shots. Oh god, the
absolutely.
shots.
Oh, but those were hysterical. You do it. No, you do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
stab me, Z.
Yeah, and I mean, I've stabbed you before, I've done your piercing some of your piercings, but I don't know, it's
Right.
just like, even then, like, I don't wanna hurt you, I don't wanna stab you, it sucks.
You did,
I did,
but the
yeah,
shots were different. The shots were different, and I can get that, but I can't because 'cause I'm like, "Just jab me in the ass and let's go."
yeah, and I did. It was a very I mean, and I loved being able to be a part of it because even, like, I got to, hang out with the kids while you did your thing and, I got to take care of 6 kids at once, and that was great.
That was awesome.
That was probably one of the most brilliant times. I was living my dream of
That was
having
all.
a big family.
I loved those pictures.
So, I wanna kind of get into, your story and what you went through and kind of also open up that understanding of, like, yeah, there are some surrogacy stories that are wild as fuck, but there are also some that look really beautiful and then have, a lot of negative things that maybe happened but didn't change the fact. Just kind of like opening up that education for people on surrogacy and your experience on it.
Yeah, so I actually had 1.5 journeys. I originally matched with what I now know was a shady, shady company, and I missed all the red flags. I was so excited to do it. I did some research, but not anywhere near enough because you know me. I get an idea in my head, I do some research, and I jump instead of doing more research on top of that research. So I am fiercely to just kind of like preface this. I am fiercely protective of my successful surrogacy journey. So I will not be giving away any information, not even the gender or who the IPs could be. And the IPs are just the intended parents. So they will be referred to as intended parents and surrobaby. Um, just because, we'll call the surrobaby Grogu because that was the nickname that we gave them,
That's beautiful.
which is a funny story why. But so my initial journey was the first one. I had a specific set of intended parents that I wanted to work with, and you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have preferences. You're allowed to state this is what you want from your journey. If you want an open and close relationship, you let your agency know that. If you want more of like a closed, like I'm just gonna do my thing, I'll send, the ultrasound pictures and updates from the appointments. And I don't want to meet the baby, I don't want to hold the baby, or whatever that looks like for you, you're allowed to choose that and get matched based on intended parents who have the same ideas. I wanted an experience where I got updates here and there. I would wanted to be able to see that the baby was alive and healthy and hopefully happy. Um, and I ended up matching with an international from set of intended parents, and they were from China. They didn't speak any English, so we used a translator, which didn't initially bother me, but they weren't the set of IPs that I initially was hoping to work for. And I caved, which was a mistake on my part and a red flag on the agency's part because they knew exactly what I was looking for and they still chose to ignore that. So they had claimed that they wanted an open and, very close relationship, which I was okay with. It's what I wanted. So I figured it's okay, we'll move forward. Fast forward to, the medical clearance because when you do surrogacy, you have to go through a site clearance. First, you send all of your medical records from previous pregnancies to the agency. They go through it and make sure that you qualify. Then you do your site clearance. If you're married, they have to do a site clearance. If they live in your house and they're over 18, they have to do a site clearance. They want to know who's around you while you're carrying this baby. After the site clearance, you'll be sent for a medical clearance with the IVF clinic. And then once that's done, if everything goes well, then they set up your med calendar and you start taking your meds and hopefully have a transfer soon and a, you're pregnant. I went for my med clearance and it was chaotic. It was crazy. They flew me into New York at like 2 in the morning on the most ridiculous flights to make it as cheap as possible for the agency while still charging the intended parents because they told me over and over again how they were rich scientists from China. They had older children already, and allegedly they just wanted to start over.
Why would you
I
wanna
get
do
in
that?
there. I don't know. But me at that time, I had never had to use a rental car service before. So it was new for me. And I needed to get the rental car in New York to drive to New Hampshire. And it was supposed to just be a quick, 3-hour drive, quick, um, to the hotel. And then it was just 5 minutes from the hotel to the clinic. Well, I had no idea that you had to have the credit card that you put the reservation under with you when you go to pick up the car. No clue. They didn't tell me. So I couldn't pick up the rental car. Nobody from my agency would call. My coordinator, who was supposed to be awake and with me until I got settled at the hotel, was not answering her phone initially. When she finally did, I was told, well, you'll have to figure something out. I don't know. And hung up on me. Meanwhile, I had to go to this by myself. My husband could not come with me um, due to work. So where I'm trying to deal with all this. I'm bawling my eyes out. It's 2 in the morning in New York at an airport. Wasn't looking so great. I finally get a hold of the translator. And the translator says, no, 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 no. I will give you a card. Get an Uber. I said, if I Uber 3 hours, it's going to be really expensive if I can find someone. She says, I don't care. Get an Uber and I'll give you the card number. So she does. And 3 hours and 10 minutes on the dot, she calls me back to make sure that I got to the hotel okay, which I did. And I was able to shower and just kind of relax. The med clearance went well. And then I came home. I went for the transfer, and this is where things got really dicey. So the transfer I went to, and again, they had me on ridiculous flights that didn't need to be. They could have been a direct flight or maybe one layover or one transfer. I had 7 layovers in different places.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I get there and then I find out from someone at the clinic that I was the 3rd surrogate. They had 2 other surrogates that hadn't gotten to transfer day yet. And I had no idea. I said, well, why wouldn't they say something? Well, they want a lot of they want 3 babies, but, they want to do it healthy. First of all, why do you want 3 babies at one time? You're an older couple. So I got really upset because I got lied to. And I did steal the pen from the clinic.
As you fucking should.
Right. Because that pen was so cool, let me tell you. It was one of those pens that had like water at the end.
Like a little snow globe.
And yeah. And it had a couple of sperm and a couple of eggs floating around in there.
That's so cute.
I had to steal the pen. I stole that pen and I don't regret it.
No, fuck them.
So I get home and I don't even get home. I'm trying to deal with all these flights and somebody and my husband's family was going to initially watch my children for me. We have 4 children, and, this is almost 7 years ago. So they're all much younger. I think my youngest was, a year old?
Yeah, they were babies.
Yeah, they were super young. So they were supposed to watch my children, but when I started talking about it and it being close to time to me going, all of a sudden it was, well, I need to know your hotel. I need to know your itinerary. I need to know the clinic. I need to know what Ubers you're taking. You don't know what Ubers you're taking. And it was, I need to know everything you plan on doing, where you're going to be, and everything else. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a little intense.
Mhm.
And then it just became more of what felt like a dictatorship. And way too stressful. So I asked the one and only Z to
Hello.
come watch my babies.
Yeah. I also feel like at the time too, like our 2 young well, your 2 youngest, my 2 only, same ages. So we had 2 infants, 2 toddlers, and the 2 older kids. And it was a blast. And if I wouldn't have got that opportunity, I'd have been devastated. But also, I don't know if we've like prefaced this or not prior, but Jess and I have our children have mutual family.
Yes.
Um, in that way. Same like family on that side. And it just the controlling aspect to know these people is to also know that to be involved with some of them, not all of them, is you're gonna have to give them like half of your body, like half of your life, like your information. Like it's just there's such a controlling aspect here. And to take your situation and something like you're obviously vulnerable in this situation because you're going through a surrogacy. This is your first time doing this. And it's such a like emotional roller coaster. You're already going through, a lot of anxiety to not like support you at your fullest at that time is something I can never imagine putting anyone through, honestly.
And to top it off, my husband was deployed. So
Yeah.
let's put the little cherry on top of my husband was also deployed at this time,
And he had
which,
just come back from getting deployed, like,
yes,
very soon before that.
yes, this was the 3-year span where he deployed. Let's see, in 3 years, he had deployed 2 times and went TDY once as well, which is just a temporary trip kind of thing. So it was a lot. And honestly, for my parenting style and for Z's parenting style, it doesn't get any closer and it doesn't align any closer. I know at least like on my side, like who better to watch your children than somebody who is almost exactly the same as you in parenting style.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so it turned into this huge disaster. I'm sitting at the airport. I'm arguing with this person through text. And well, you didn't even tell, bonus mom, who's my mother in law, but she is the sweetest person. So I just call her my bonus mom. And, I'm arguing back that we did back at Christmas, but, it would be easy for her to forget because we had also just told them that her son was deploying. So it would be easy to forget. So it was this huge fight with them and this person. And they ended up getting in contact with my husband while he's deployed and texting him and yelling at him basically, "Do you know where your wife is? Do you know what she's doing right now?"
As if it matters, because I mean, it's not even his option, his choice or whatever, but, like, what is he gonna do? Not like, you know, you're not gonna hide that from him.
Right, you can't hide a pregnancy. Um, and he was fully on board with it. Um, so in the midst of all this, this person was somebody that we were close to at the time, and somebody that my children loved and, did come over quite a bit, through deployments, um, and is somebody that should have loved my husband unconditionally and always been there for him, and instead chose to tell him, "Well, just lose my number." And at first, he thought that it was while deployed, and at first he thought that this was more of like, okay, in like a week, they'll calm down and be like, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." But it's been almost 6 years now, and it's just been trying to sweep it under the rug on their side. And my husband's like, absolutely not. You cut me off from you and your family, basically, and I'm not dealing with it. And that is something that you have to take into account with surrogacy is not everybody in your family is going to be supportive. I had another close family member of mine who was not supportive of surrogacy. My own mom. She was not about it. I don't know if it was that she wasn't grasping that I was not the egg donor. I was just the gestational carrier. Um, but the entire time, I could not talk to her about it or share details about it or anything like that with her. And that's what I wanted to do because she's my mom. The relationship was a little bit strained, but it was okay. And since then, everything is fine now, but you have to be prepared and make a decision on if you can handle family members not supporting your journey because it does come up. So anyway, I get home from the transfer and I call my coordinator from the agency and I asked her, "Did you know that they had two other surrogates? Are they with the same agency?" And she gets sheepish and says yes. She knew, but they didn't want us to know about each other. Red flag number 2.
Yeah, that's sketchy as fuck.
Right. I mean, there were multiple red flags, but we'll just call this red flag number 2 for easy sake. And I just started getting the ick because why do these people want 3 children, 3 babies? Why can't the surrogates know about each other? Like, why is this all hush hush? So the pregnancy ended up being a chemical pregnancy. So the only thing keeping this embryo alive was the progesterone shots that I had to take. So they had me stop those and then the embryo left and
Peace.
said peace out.
Mhm.
Um and I took some time to really think about what I wanted and making sure that I was steadfast in that and that I wasn't going to change my mind. There are Facebook matching groups for surrogacy. There's also agency reviews on Facebook. So really do your research when it comes to your agency and, you know, making sure you know what you want from a match, what you will and will not be okay with. And that includes things up to even if the baby turns out to have Down syndrome. Are you willing to get an abortion? Because some IPs will want to terminate an abort for Down syndrome or other chromosomal abnormalities.
Which is
Um,
so fair and totally valid, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
right. And for me, I wasn't okay with it. Just for me and my preference, I couldn't go through with it. So there's a lot of things to think of. So I met this couple who ended up being my intended parents through one of these matching apps. I will say that they are another military family, and I felt that connection between them, partly because of that, and partly because it was just so easy to talk to them. I felt so comfortable talking to them. Um, and, my children would do video chats with them because this is a journey that involved my whole family. So everybody needed to be comfortable. My children adored them. And my daughter's sketchy. She is a sketchy person when it comes to people. If she don't like you, I don't like you. And even she loved them. So when Andrew got home from his deployment, because it was a 6-month deployment, when he got home from his deployment, we took it slow still. I introduced my husband through a video chat. They actually flew to where we lived at the time and came to meet us and spent the weekend with us and made sure that we could all vibe and mesh. And it was amazing. So we moved forward with that journey, and I ended up getting pregnant on the first try. And it was amazing. Fortunately, that was also when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So they could not come down for ultrasounds like they wanted to, like for the major ultrasounds. Um, I did make the decision to transfer 2 embryos because they wanted twins. They
Oh my
wanted
god.
a boy and a girl. I knew the risks, and you have to understand that if you transfer 2 embryos, there is a chance that you will have 4 babies in there.
I'm
You
fucking
will have
sick.
3 babies in there. Right.
Oh,
Even if you only transfer 1 baby, you could still end up with twins.
yeah.
Embryos
And
split.
as somebody who had a twin pregnancy, that shit fucking sucked.
Yeah. Not unfortunately, only 1 embryo took. So it was and they were still just as ecstatic. They were so happy and excited. They were so supportive through the whole journey. They sent me little things here and there. They bought my pregnancy pillow. Um,
A necessity.
everything. Right. It is a necessity. They were just so sweet and so caring. And when it came time for delivery, they came down a little bit early because you never know, but we were going to have to induce because baby Grogu was massive, was measuring several weeks ahead. And I am only but 5'2". So we wanted to make sure that didn't end up growth restricted or I wouldn't have problems. Um, so they did a membrane sweep at one of the appointments because I was having some contractions, but it was not really making progress. They walked around with me afterwards. And then when I went into labor, I said, I think I might go to the hospital just to get checked and see if this is it. You guys don't have to head over there yet. They were there before us. They could not be more excited, and we had a successful delivery. I did allow them in the room with me and my husband. You are allowed to have a support person. You are allowed to choose your spouse or anybody else that you want as your support person. It does not have to be one of the intended parents. And that goes for a C section as well. And that's something that needs to be discussed in matching.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I knew that I couldn't get through it without my husband there because he was the one who kept me calm through, my last pregnancy. We are a blended family, so only the youngest 2 are biologically his. But, they were in there, and the moment that they got to hold the baby for the first time is a moment that I will never in my life forget. And the same for Andrew because we both kind of looked over at the same time. Once the cord stopped pulsing, the doctor was holding each baby. They were able to cut the cord and do skin to skin. The moment I saw them when they truly became parents holding their baby, it was this shock to my system of like, I don't know, it's so hard to explain. Seeing somebody become a parent is such a wild thing that it's indescribable. And, even my husband says the same thing. Like, that's a moment that you can never forget. Um, and everything was great. It was not the hospital that I originally wanted. I wanted to go with the hospital that my daughter was born at. But keep in mind that religious aspects can change your plans. It was a Catholic hospital that I wanted to deliver at. And while the person that I spoke with said that she had no issues with it and neither did any of the staff, hospital policy said that they do not honor surrogacy and we would have to do a parking lot swap. And they would have to sign papers to adopt their baby because they would list my husband and I as the parents on the birth certificate. But yeah, a
Full
hospital
stop.
parking lot swap.
Oh my fucking God. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And
So we chose.
I didn't know that that was like a thing in Catholicism about surrogacy either until you had told me that. And I was just like, what the fuck? That's crazy. Because they're like pro them babies being born. Surrogacy is literally babies being born.
Right. It's like all the babies being born. Um, I think that it ended up being a good thing though, because the nurses that I had, they had worked with another surrogate just a couple months prior. So they were well versed and, they kind of knew. They knew not to call me mama or mommy. They knew to address the intended parents for any questions that they had baby related whatsoever. They also knew when to ask the intended parents to step out for my privacy for any procedures or checks and things like that. So they were able to help us kind of maintain those boundaries. Not that my intended parents were trying to step on any boundaries because they were beyond respectful, but you know, for me, it ended up being the journey of my dreams. It was exactly what I want. And now baby Grogu will be 6 for the next birthday. And I cannot even believe that it's been that long now, and that baby Grogu is this old. I do get pictures and updates here and there, and the smiles on this child's face are from ear to ear in 9% of all these pictures. And the intended parents, you see it in their eyes, just the love and sheer happiness. So for me, it ended up everything working out well. And I am happy to answer any questions that you have. I know for our Spotify, we have comments open. So if you have comments or questions, I'm happy to answer them. As long as you're not asking personal questions about the family. Um, but I do want to touch really quickly on a few things that you need to watch out for and really think of. And this is by no means an all inclusive list. Like, this is just big major things. If you're choosing an agency, you need to ask them what escrow company they use. Seed Trust is who we used, and they were amazing. If they say that they use an in-house escrow company, run. There was an agency that actually just closed down. I want to say it was like 6-ish months ago, could have been a little longer. They used an in-house escrow company. And when that agency went under, the intended parents and the surrogates lost everything, all of their money. Surrogates were no longer being paid, and intended parents were scrambling to pay the surrogates because they had already paid so much. So you definitely don't want an in-house escrow company. I would recommend Seed Trust. They are amazing, but you can use who you want. As far as your lawyer is concerned, your lawyer works for you. Do not use the same lawyer as your intended parents. Do not use an in house lawyer who is employed by the agency because they only have the agency and the intended parents in mind. They're not going to protect you. And your attorney is supposed to be the one looking out for you. The agency is supposed to as well, but your attorney is going to be where things are written in ironclad. When your compensation starts, your base compensation, it's usually with the first heartbeat, ultrasound, but you want to make sure that you get that within X amount of days, not with the next month, because you could be waiting an entire month for your base pay to start. You also do get a monthly compensation. Mine was set for, I believe, $300, and that's just to help offset gas to doctor's appointments, any childcare costs that is just for basic things like for doctor's appointments, if you need extra prenatal pills, things like that. If you need to eat a little bit better, it can help towards groceries and that stuff. It's not included in your base pay. I believe that a fair compensation for a first-time surrogate would be anywhere from 20 to 35,000. I know that there
No.
are surrogates who get more.
If I'm popping out somebody else's baby, they're paying me $1 million.
$1 million.
For my uterus, $1 million, please.
Yes. And then you have second and third time surrogates, repeat surrogates. They get more money and, more compensation because they've already proved that they can stick to the med protocol, which can be intense. I'm not going to lie. Those shots start to burn, your butt cheek starts to burn, and you get lumps in your butt. And it takes a while for them suckers to go down, and they are sore. So the med journey it's not fun. It's not pleasant. It's not sunshine and rainbows. Um, you have to stick to a pretty strict schedule. Um, but it's worth it in the end. And one of the things that you can have in your contract, or one of the things that's in your contract, is loss of organs. So if you have to have a hysterectomy, you get a certain amount of money, and that's something that you and your intended parents agree on.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
You do have a life insurance policy taken out, but you need to watch because sometimes they try to stick it in there that the intended parents are the beneficiaries. Why do they need the money if you did?
Yeah, what the fuck, bro? Give
Yeah,
that
that's
money to
going
my
to my
kids.
family. I
Yeah,
didn't
for
have that problem. My intended parents were our contract stuff was pretty straightforward. I don't in my dreamy rose-colored glasses memories, I don't really recall any issues that we had with contracts. We pretty much were in agreement with everything. Um, so, it worked out pretty well. But, like I said, there's plenty of groups on Facebook that you can join so that you can talk to other surrogates. You can ask questions. There are agency reviews, and the agency you choose can be very important on whether you're getting help and advocacy and support. They need to be ethical. Um, that's going to be where your modern day surrogates are getting a lot of their protection and making sure that your contract is what you're comfortable with. Um, and
that's
really
what I
just
like
do
to
your
hear.
research.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
please, for the love of Darwin, do not do backdoor surrogacy. I know
Yeah,
somebody and I had to unfriend and stop talking to this person. There were multiple reasons, but the main one for me, or I guess what pushed it over the edge, was this person came to me and was like, I'm going to do a traditional surrogacy journey. And I was like, oh, because she couldn't get accepted by any agencies. They kept declining her. Well, she had preeclampsia in all of her pregnancies prior to that. So, of
yeah,
course, they're
girl,
not
you're
going
gonna
to accept
die.
you.
Be careful. Yeah, what the hell?
Right. Surrogacy is about minimizing the risk because the intended parents needed you for a reason. They couldn't safely get the baby on their own. So, it's about minimizing risk. She was gonna do it to where it was insemination, no contracts, no legal, no nothing, and apparently they were just gonna pay her bills.
Just pay her what bills? Like the hospital bills and stuff?
Yeah, they were gonna pay for anything surrogacy related, anything pregnancy related, and then they would pay, like, cell phone, and she was going to live with them so she didn't have rent.
Nah.
Like, every
That's
red
so
flag that you can think of.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, of, like, the old-timey, like, it's
That's what it
giving
was.
yeah, I mean, it's giving, like, a form of slavery in a sense of just, like, you are being used for this, and then you're gonna be thrown away after with, like, no protection. That's what fucking scares me about it.
Yeah. And she was willingly jumping into this because surrogacy means so much to me. And I tried to educate gently. I tried to educate a little harder. And then I just told her point blank,
Yeah, it's fucking
what you're
dumb.
doing is wrong. This is stupid. And this is going to end badly for all of you involved.
Yeah, something's bad's gonna happen. If there's no protection, no legal anything, yeah, it's not good. And also, I just don't feel like you're being fairly compensated either.
Right. And then you're living with them on top of it.
Nope.
I'm sorry, but no. So I
Nope.
had to cut her off because at that point I was just like, you know what? This is unacceptable and this is another reason why surrogacy gets such a bad name and
Yeah,
has such a bad
yeah,
like
I have
taste
a
in people's mouth.
I don't know, friend, I don't know, and she was like, kind of one of a woman who took care of me when I was a child, and I helped, like, her babysit her kids and stuff. She's an older lady. I say older, like, she's older than me, way older than me. Obviously, I was babysitting her kids, like, in high school and stuff.
Right.
But she did, like, a family surrogacy, family member wanted to have a baby, she said, "Sure, I'll do it, I don't care." Because this is who she is as a person, she loves to give love and happiness, and she knows the thrill of being a parent, and so she went into this going, "Your family, of course, I'll do this for you." And they fucking dipped.
What?
They dipped, and she was like and so she had this baby, and she's raised this baby. She's an amazing mother. She helped raise me for a little bit whenever I was younger. Sh Truly an amazing woman. Um, but yeah, they fucking dipped, and she ended up having this baby. It would be her last baby. She has, like, 1,000,000 children. But this would be her last baby, and she's raised him, and he's beautiful and gorgeous and perfect in every way, of course, and she loves him. But, like, she was doing that, doing it what she assumed was a good thing, and at the time, I was pretty young, so I didn't fucking know. I was like, "Oh, look at you having a baby for, family, that's cool." Yeah, don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Not without contracts and legal. Like if you don't have a contract and you haven't been cleared by an IVF clinic, you doing it
Yeah.
wrong, stop
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
gonna get screwed. There's a
Jess,
reason that that's wrong.
will you have, I can't. Well, I probably could have another baby. Probably not gonna have another baby myself. I will give you $20. Will you have a baby for me?
Bitch, I'll do it for free.
I I'll never have another baby, but if I was going to have another baby, I would have to outsource that baby getting.
Yeah.
And I always
I just
always
have to
thought,
get my uterus back.
deal. Oh yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck, I
Let
forgot.
me get that,
Uh,
and then I'll do it.
okay, deal. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I always wanted to be a foster parent. My plans, are changing fastly or whatever, and if that's gonna be something that I'll get to do. Um, but yeah, I've always wanted to be a foster parent. Um,
Same.
and so, like, surrogacy isn't for me, but that doesn't mean it's not for other people. I wanna adopt or foster, eventually one day if I mean, right now it's kind of like maybe I do so much for the community as is with just my job, that it seems like all of my, people that I work with are all I'm taking care of so many people all the time, so it would be a little overwhelming at this point in my life, but it's great. Adoption's like an option as well as somebody
Oh,
who
yeah.
had such a negative, world that I lived in because adoption doesn't work out for a lot of kids. A lot of kids don't get adopted, or a lot of kids get adopted into homes that are not safe for them or fostered, essentially. There's lots of child trafficking in foster care. Mm,
Yeah.
and so, like, there's options. Surrogacy is your option. I respect that, and I love that for you. And as a mother, I never wanted to be a mom, back in the day before I had children. I'm pretty open about that. My kids, know they changed my world, essentially. They changed my life and really made
Right.
me realize that motherhood is so beautiful. Well, I wouldn't say beautiful. It has its moments. But giving that to somebody else, like, you're great. You're a dream. You're a hero.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that's our
you.
episode on surrogacy,
Yep.
where we learned that science is wild, the legal system is messy, and women are out here performing literal fucking miracles with their bodies. From the Baby M courtroom case to modern day womb wizardry, it's been a journey. And a huge thanks to Jess for being a real life superhero and proving that some people are built different, like emotionally, physically, spiritually. Wow, you're a goddess. Go you.
Oh, yay.
If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, whatever, tell a friend who needs to know that babies can arrive via contractual agreement and vibes. Um,
Yes.
we'll be
And
back.
pineapple.
Yeah, and pineapple. We'll be back. And we're really excited to continue to share our neurodivergent spirals and whatever historical rabbit hole kidnaps me next. Stay hydrated. I just want to say, stay hydrated. Fuck ice. Is that fair? And
Right.
remember, yeah, fuck ice. And remember, not all heroes wear capes. Some wear maternity leggings for other people.
Yes, they do. All right. We love you guys. Bye.
Bye.